Hello everyone, this is a short talk on the importance of crazy goals. This is Professor Bong Diungria. I'm the CEO and founder of Transforme and a professor at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. So this presentation was originally designed and delivered to the Quezon City Small Business and Cooperatives Development Promotions Office events together with TrainingPh at the Great Eastern Hotel on October 3, 2024, attended by over 200 members of the Community Savings Group of Quezon City. And to me, there are three types of crazy. You get to choose one. Which type of crazy are you? There's this Einstein insanity crazy, and Albert Einstein is credited with this quotation: insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. How can you have a different result when you did the same thing? Only crazy, insane people think that. Are you this crazy number one? There's also crazy number two. There's the Amazon and Apple crazy. Okay, these are the big heavyweights. Jeff Bezos said when he started, when he was much younger, starting Amazon, I'm going to do this crazy thing. I'm going to start this company selling books online. And people laughed at him. They knew that it wasn't profitable, that he'd lose money, that he will never be successful. But Jeff Bezos was convinced and committed to getting things from A to Z. That's why it's Amazon. And now he's one of the top 3 richest people in the world. And what he built is really hard to copy. There's this Steve Jobs Apple crazy. And this is quite a long quote, and I'd allow you to read it at your own pace. I'd just like to highlight that the word crazy appears 3 times. Here's to the crazy ones. And he celebrates these crazy people because while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So Steve Jobs was crazy enough to build the iPhone, to build the Apple laptop, to build the Apple Watch from nothing. That's Steve Jobs, another crazy person. And then there's the third type of crazy, more local, and I call it crazy. And since this is a talk with the Quezon City Small Business and Cooperative Developments Promotion Office and the Community Savings Group, I chose something close to our hearts, SM City North EDSA. Did you know that many questioned Henry C. when he opened this first mall in a marshland during a political crisis? This place where this mall stands was really 16 hectares of nothing. And Henry C. was pouring in a lot of money for his first shopping mall. In fact, it opened only with 2 tenants, SM Department Store and SM Supermarket. Whether that's true or just urban legend, I will never know. But there were many people who called Henry C. crazy for opening his first mall, putting in billions of pesos during the political crisis of 1985. Remember, Ninoy was assassinated in 1983, and the EDSA revolution happened in 1986. And in between this time, especially 1985, business was very, very bad. So are you this third type of crazy where you proceed Like Henry C., even if a lot of people say, no, stop it, you lose money, you're crazy. Are you this type of crazy? So again, this talk is about the importance of crazy goals. Not just goals, but crazy goals. And I use this unique, innovative thinking process which I developed called CraZYX. And it has 6 elements. The first is to create, knowing the starting point with a clear end in mind, knowing why, what not to do, and the plan, which is W. Let's take it one by one. So CR represents create. Create from nothing. Create something that wasn't going to happen. Again, this is not react. If you notice, react and create have very similar letters. That's just E. That's different. But reacting is there's something already there and you respond to it. That's why it's a reaction. But creation, it starts from nothing. And because you create, things that weren't going to happen, happened. So for your goals, don't be afraid to create from nothing. Henry C. created nothing from a 16-hectare marshland. He created a ₱1 billion building and a very profitable business from nothing. That's the creation stage. In our small business, create just might be an idea that you will say, I will do it. That's the name of your idea. You create it from nothing. So that's the first step. What's the second step? Oh, by the way, one of the billionaires today who also started from being poor was Manny Villar. And he said, when you create, dream big and have the passion to pursue them, because great things never come easy. Never come easy. Libre naman mangarap, mangarap ka na ng malaki. But something that will be supported by the other elements of our crazy goal. If you do not have a crazy goal, you are limited by the things that you already see, the things that you are already available. In this visual, we see 3 roads that are existing. The middle road is kind of the most straight, while the 2 others on the right and left are a little more curved, a little more different. But what's the same with these options are they already exist. Do you choose this as your crazy goal? Creation is creating something that wasn't going to happen. So instead of depending on the existing roads, you create a new road to something that, again, these new roads won't take you to. So on the right side, there are 3 other roads. They are not paved, they're not smooth, they're not highways, and you're not sure where they lead. Let's challenge ourselves to follow the roads less traveled, especially if this will allow us to create the future we want. So the next step of the CraZYX is knowing the letter A. Where are you now? Which is your starting point. Because knowing where you are today is necessary for you to plot where to go. Remember, if you're going on a plane, you buy a ticket to somewhere, but it has to reference where you're coming from. So the ticket will depend not just on the destination, but also where you're coming from. If you use Google Maps or Waze to navigate, what does it automatically detect? It detects where you are. And from where you are, that's where it plots, okay, where's the best way to go. So knowing your starting point is essential. It's not a denial, it's knowing where you are and what you have as you start your journey. For example, if you know that you have 10,000 pesos today and you realize that the 3 existing roads will bring you to a lower amount, 1 year from now, will you follow these roads? Of course not, because you don't want your 10,000 pesos to decrease in value. Yes, if you put it under your bed, it will never get lost. But inflation will devalue it and probably make it 9,200. That's the easy way. That's the straightest way to lose money. But is it the right way to create your future? Of course not. Okay, you said, okay, I'll not put it in my bed. I'll deposit it in a bank. But as you know, the interest that you get in a bank, in a savings account, doesn't match inflation. So even then, that your money is safe and it's earning some interest, it's still losing value when you put it there. So that's maybe the other two roads you can choose. The sure, easy way, you don't lose it, but it's not creating something better. So the next letter of our crazy goal is the letter Z. We have to begin with the end in mind. So like Waze or Google Maps, where it auto detects where your starting point is, you can only go once you are very specific as to where you want to end your trip. So that's beginning with the end in mind. A saying popularized by famous author Stephen Covey. And that's our next point after determining where we're starting from. So when you define your end in mind or your goal, it has to be smart, has to be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Because if the goal is not smart, you won't get to your destination in time. You will get lost. No? Simple challenges will bring you to another destination. You cannot say, I'm just going to Makati. Makati is so big. Or going to Quezon City, it's so big. Where and when do you want to arrive? And that is making your goal smart. Imagine if you were building a house, the goal is to have so many rooms finished at a certain period of time with a certain budget, and it starts with knowing the Z even before the house is built. But you have that end in mind as shown in your drawing so that you're able to achieve it when you do put in the work and spend the money and engage the work of experts to build that house. It starts with having that drawing, that very specific drawing, with a budget, with people who will work for you, with a deadline. And that is what we mean by having a SMART goal as your Z and end in mind. So if A is the start of the alphabet, Z is the end of it, and we won't miss, because Z is the ultimate endpoint outcome of what we want, but it has to be smart. So again, given our example of having 10,000, where you now know that choosing the easy way, the guaranteed way, will mean losing the amount. It's no longer 10,000, becomes 9,200, 9,500. But if you created a future where it can grow to 11,000 to 13,000, then you know that it's something worth creating and worth pursuing. It will not be easy. As they say, the road to success is always under construction, but there's no other way to live the life that we want. We have to create this crazy, crazy goal, and that crazy goal, the RZ, must be smart. Well, Fernando Zobel de Ayala wasn't born poor, but what he said about the value of goals is that it becomes a roadmap that allows us to turn our dreams into reality. Without that roadmap to follow, we will easily get lost frustrated, and we may find ourselves abandoning our goal because we can't see it. But with the roadmap, even if it's just a map, even if it's just a drawing of the house we want, even if it's just a business plan, with our goal, this serves as a roadmap to help us get there. Now, one of the elements of a SMART goal is the time. There has to be a deadline because someday is really not a day. You don't find it in our calendar. Now na. You want something, do it now. Now, the next element after making our goal, our Z, very smart is knowing why. Why do we want the Z? Because there's a saying in Filipino, kung ayaw may dahilan, kung gusto, palaging may paraan. And if we don't really have a strong why, it's easy to give up our Z. It's easy to say, I don't really need the Z. I have been challenged. It's become a problem. I'll give up. So that's why that strong why, the strong reason why you want the Z is a very important part of your crazy goal. There's also this saying that we will encounter many excuses along the way, and our why should be stronger than our strongest excuse. Again, our why we want the Z, should be stronger than our strongest excuse. When it's weaker, once the excuse comes, we give up. That's why we have to strengthen the why. We have to know in our heart and feel in our heart why we want the Z. Now, Cecilio Pedro, the inventor, the president of Lamoyan Corporation, which launched Happy Toothpaste, suffered a setback sometime in the 1990s because Mr. Pedro was the manufacturer of the aluminum tubes used by the toothpaste of Colgate Philippines, Unilever Philippines, Close-Up, and Procter & Gamble. So he had a very good business because he was supplying the aluminum tubes and he had the factory to do it. But lo and behold, a sudden setback. There was a law or a multinational initiative to stop using aluminum for toothpaste. Now suddenly he has a factory which can produce aluminum tubes, but he cannot sell to anyone. But he converted that setback to an opportunity. He created his own toothpaste using the same aluminum tubes that he was producing. So without that setback, he would have just been a supplier of aluminum tubes. Because of the setback and his ability to take advantage and convert that opportunity, then he became a big competitor of this multinational toothpaste manufacturers. And to this day, Happy is a strong challenger to world-leading Colgate, Close-Up, and other toothpaste brands. Now, after the Y is the X, and the X represents what you will not do. What will you give up? Because often we find that there are just a few things to avoid, to not do, and if that is clear, all the other things are okay. If you recall, in the Old Testament, in the Bible, God, when He created Adam and Eve, placed them in the Garden of Eden, and He basically told them, you can do anything you want in this garden, anything, a million things you can do. Just don't do one thing. And that one thing is not to eat the forbidden fruit. Of course, we know what happened, and they did that one thing that wasn't allowed. But imagine this. It was easier to say the one thing that they should not do instead of the million things that they can do. All right, so in our crazy goals, We can do a million things, but we should also know and be very clear and committed to the things we will not do, the things we will give up. Even in another part, in the later part of the Old Testament, there were the 10 Commandments. So again, God was saying, since you're not following me, I'd like to give you a guide. These are the 10 things you cannot do. Do not, do not, do not. So when we create our crazy goal, that X is reminding us we cannot do everything. There are some things we have to give up. There are some things that we cannot do. And if we're aware of that, then we can do the million things that are allowed. So we have to know the excess. And if we know the excess, we will have the power to multiply and achieve the power to achieve our Z. As Henry C. also said, there's no such thing as overnight success or easy money. So he knows that every business will have a failure. Even he suffered failures along the way. The one X that he kept reminding his family, his stockholders, the people who reported to him, if you fail, do not be discouraged. Try again. So he knew what should not be done, which is being discouraged, and he made it clear to everyone in the SM and the C family team. We will fail, but we will not be discouraged. So the W represents the normal business plan. The what, who, how, and when. Right? Ano, sino gagawa, paano gagawin, and kailan siya madideliver, magagawa. So if you notice, this W comes only after the Z, the outcome, the goal, the Y, that goal is important, and the X, the thing that you will not do or clear. That's only when you bring the things that you will do. Okay? So we cannot just go with W and be Nike and just do it. Why? Because we can find ourselves, painting ourselves into a corner where we cannot get out. So we need a plan. So part of the SMART goals, of the crazy goals, is having a plan on how these goals will be achieved. It cannot be just do it. Now, what's good about this idea is we are reminded that the Z should not change, especially if our Ys are strong enough and we know our X's, but the W's can and must change as we do them. We should not confuse them with a Z. We cannot fall in love with a W, and we always have to challenge if the W's align with the Y or reasons why we want to achieve the Z. So the W is flexible, the ZYX is not. So in summary, this is what we have as the CraZYx W way of goal setting, of goal achievement, of breakthrough thinking. We create something out of nothing. We know where we start. We know where we end, and we make it a SMART goal. We know why we want the Z. It's clear what we will not do and we will give up. And we know the what, who, when, and how, which can change. And that's the only things that can change in our crazy goals. In Tagalog, CR, anong pangarap mo? A, asan ka ngayon? Z, anong SMART goal mo? Y, bakit mo ba gusto yung Z na yan? X, anong bawal at hindi mo gagawin? N, ano, sino, kailan, papano? Yan ang W. So, let's go back. This is part of a bigger system, the crazy system, which I developed for highly repetitive breakthroughs. That's how we transform people, companies, and teams. And this QR code will allow you to contact us for more information. But even we stop at the ZYXW, and we don't go with the VUTS, which are the other parts of the crazy system, that's more than enough to break through and to repeat that breakthrough again and again. There are many videos on YouTube where you can watch Henry C. success story from rags to riches, and he came with just 10 cents from China and built $1 billion business, not just with money, not just with hard work, but with crazy goals. And that's the important thing we learned today. We can go crazy. Like Steve Jobs said, here's to the crazy one. While others will see us as crazy, we see genius because we are crazy enough to think that we can change the world. So this is my talk on the importance of crazy goals. This is Crazy Prof Bong Diungria. Scan the QR code if you want to reach out, and that's my number and email. Thank you, and let's go crazy.